Okay, Stephen Harper's a Conservative, Francois Hollande is not, and Barack Obama is not, at least in the American spectrum. That's the final stop for the Prime Minister, probably the most high-profile, perhaps most important. What's on the table there?
Yeah, well, that is absolutely a very big meeting, a bilateral discussion with the President. It'll be Abbott's first chance to actually meet one-on-one with the President. The President was going to be at APEC last year, or East Asia Summit I think it was, but the troubles at home meant that he couldn't leave. Now this meeting will go ahead. It's significant that he has been given this visit, that it's going ahead. It says a lot about the Australia-US relationship, but it's also true to say that we don't expect to see the kind of natural chemistry that we've seen between Australian and US leaders before. And I'm particularly thinking of George W. Bush and John Howard, who saw each other as very much sort of kindred spirits, and then after that, of course, Julia Gillard and Barack Obama also saw each other as very much kindred spirits. And you could see there's always a bit of sort of acting and sort of diplomatic nicety in these things, but in both of those cases, you could see a genuine warmth between those two leaders. Whether we see that between the Conservative Tony Abbott and the Progressive Barack Obama is another matter.
Well, I imagine there'll be certain elements when President Obama and Tony Abbott will be very much on the same page, the same trade negotiations, particularly security concerns, America's pivot to Asia concerns over the expansion of China. So, yes, but I guess climate change, no.
Well, that's right. I mean, we saw when Tony Abbott was in Japan recently how muscular and forthright he was in promoting that Australian-Japanese relationship and the strategic significance of Australia's relationship with countries like Japan and Korea in that part of the world, something that is both in Australia's interest and the US interest. So in strategic security terms, there are lots of overlaps between Australia's interests and the US, although if you listen to someone like Malcolm Fraser, he thinks those overlaps are in the favour of the US and that we ought to disentangle ourselves a bit. But yes, on this other crucial question about which it now seems that Obama is beefing up the US stance, that is on the climate, there's likely to be a considerable difference. And as we sit here speaking at the moment, President Obama is preparing a major statement on that, which will have occurred by the time Abbott has his meeting with him, and it will put the two countries, the US and Australia, on quite different paths. The US pursuing now a significant and quite aggressive attack on carbon pollution, and Australia taking a somewhat more soft shoe approach.
So tell me, as a reporter covering that sort of trip, there is this sort of disagreement, if you like, between the two governments. Might be expressed in public, but in private, but will it be expressed in public, or will you need to read between the lines? What do you expect?
I think it's unlikely that there'll be anything said in public which is embarrassing to either side, but the obvious difference, the difference will be there to be seen between the direction that Obama is now trying to take the US in his final 2 years in the White House. Presidents do get a little courageous in their final 2 years when they're not, can't seek re-election, and so that might be one explanation for Obama's new kind of courage in this area. Australia, on the other hand, taking, as I say, this kind of soft shoe approach. What's interesting though is that the US is going down this path now, and Australia is taking it more softly, and yet Australia's general position has been we'll act when the rest of the world acts. So I think it will throw some sort of pressure back onto Australia to start looking at whether it's a rather modest 5% target, which most people think can't be achieved with direct action anyway, but even if it can, it's a very modest target. Whether Australia now will have to respond to the fact that the US is taking a much more interventionist approach on this and beef up its policies as well.
Okay, Mark, thanks very much. Look forward to your reports from the trip.
Thanks, Chris.